Well, welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. We're in the far reaches of space with a kind of a frightening looking ship. And the reason why is we're talking Star Frontiers, because I haven't talked about that for a while. And also I wanted to discuss the bad guys, the villains of Star Frontiers, the Sathar. Not really to go into details with the actual alien species themselves, but more how I almost never used them in my campaign, which is weird. Like, they're kind of presented in the original rulebook as like, oh, here's your villain of the piece. Here's who it is that your various Ysarians and Dralicites are going to be fighting against. The Sathar, this mysterious alien race. I think they're a really cool design. I love how they look. Kind of like a giant earthworm. They've got these segmented bodies without any skeleton, and they use some kind of way to puff up their skin to make them stiff for standing up. They got two tentacles on either side, one pair used for carrying guns, the other pair for pushing against the floor to stand up on their, sort of on their hind legs or haunches. A very cool design, including the fact that their face is quite alien as well. They've got two eyes in each of their sockets, so they got quite a wide range of view. They got this cool looking snout. They're a neat alien species, like literally, for something made in 1981 or so, they did an amazing job of coming up with a villainous species creature on par with what we've got in the rest of Star Frontiers. The Ysarians, the Dralicites, the Vrask. So, you would think, hey, this is a great alien bad guy, and a lot of people have used them. In fact, when I did my Star Frontiers combat scenario for spaceship combat, I recreated one of the scenarios in the Nighthawk's rulebook, and in there was some Sathar taking on some destroyers and a frigate, I think, and there was an assault ship. And to be honest, that was the first time I talked about the Sathar in any of these videos, with the exception of my intro. And that's probably one of the few times I ever used the Sathar. Why? Why did I not use them? They're such a great, neat idea for a villainous race. In fact, they're even presented in Volturnus, the very thing that you go down to the planet for. You discover Sathar are coming to Volturnus. So, I did use them. I did actually make use of them as kind of a contractual obligation. Here I am playing my campaign, and they are in the Volturnus modules, so of course you have to use the Sathar. And I did. And then they never appeared again. Ever. Not even the Sathar agents, which was kind of a subplot that was developed where any of the humans, Dralicites, Ysarians, of Rusks, they could be a Sathar agent, so be careful what you say, kind of be on the lookout. There are agents for the Sathar. I never used that either. So this is just a quick, I hope, video that kind of describes why, and it's based on story and plotline in kind of a broader context. So even if you're not a Star Frontiers player, you might enjoy this, I hope. So what is the main crux? First of all, okay, I love the Sathar design. I really thought they knocked it out of the park with that. And yet, there were parts of the TSR artwork that kind of threw me off. Like, okay, what exactly are the Sathar when it comes to a bad guy? Are they like basically like the good races, if you want to call them that? But they do they use the same weapons? Because in various modules, you pick up a Sathar assault rifle or a laser gun or whatever, and it has pretty much the same stats. It's like, well, okay, so they're on par with the technology, but do they just grab our stuff and they use it? They can. And there's a lot of images of like Sathar with rifles and Sathar. There's even on the back of one of the modules a couple of Sathar on what can only be described as like a big, old-fashioned World War II rocket launching torpedo gun. And I'm just like, okay, so the Sathar, I guess, are very much like us. Okay. A little bit of a missed opportunity, I would have thought. Like, come on, this is an alien race. Surely there would be alien technology. And they've got some very alien things about them, which I'll get to later. But as far as, like, the nuts and bolts of, oh, you've encountered some Sathar, fine, I take their stuff. Their stuff is pretty much the same as the stuff you've got. It's like, that seems weird, So I didn't really get, where is TSR going? Now, obviously, they're painting with broad brushstrokes when they're creating the TSR rule book and the campaigns and the first modules on on Volturnas. They're kind of like, okay, this is your bad guy and this is what it does, and we'll fill in the gaps as time goes by. So as a result, yeah, you ended up with very familiar stuff for an alien species with an alien technology. That's fine. I decided with my campaign to kind of go to boil things down to real grassroots and do way more basic D&D style adventures of like, you're going through crates to find giant rats, or you're going on this ship to go, like the kind of thing that you would run into in a base level D&D campaign. That was what I started with. I thought, okay, let's just deal with, to introduce the characters, or to introduce the players to the worlds of Star Frontiers. What are the Vrusks like? What are the Azarians like? I don't know, I've never really met these races before. Okay, so let's just concentrate on, maybe a few pirates, but more likely, an antagonist of what the town is that you're currently in and what that leads to. And maybe you'll go off-world and you'll encounter more people on other worlds and that kind of thing, but very kind of getting your feet wet. And it was like that for several years. My campaign ran for quite a long time. And other than Volturnas, never once used the Sathar. Why? I'm going to use an example from Star Trek Voyager. Now, if anybody hasn't seen that show, the central premise is a Star Trek Federation vessel has been sort of catapulted to the other side of the galaxy, and now they have to spend their entire series getting home. It's a kind of a, wagon train, we want to find our home, and that kind of thing. It was an interesting premise, and they went in interesting directions with it. I may not have been the hugest fan of Voyager, but I respected where they were going with this, trying something different. Instead of just, moving delegates from one place to another, we're doing a long quest to get ourselves home. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna check out this show and see what it's like. Episode 6, like the first half dozen episodes into the premise of this show, there's an episode called Eye of the Needle where the Voyager picks up a Romulan transmission and actually deals with a Romulan in the story. And I sat there and I went, really? Like, this is... the premise of this show is we are cast far away from home. We've got to get ourselves back. And within 6 episodes, here's a Romulan. What? I mean, that's lazy writing. And it wrecks the quest. It would be like, I don't know, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, you've got to go find the Holy Grail. Okay, well, in the third story, Galahad's already found part of where the Grail is. It's like, okay, I know this is a TV show and you need to, like, maybe throw a few breadcrumbs out there to keep your audience with you, but that really stuck in my mind of like, okay, what a wasted opportunity. If you're going to if the premise of this thing is it's far away, make it far away. Don't deal with anything familiar for the longest time. In Star Frontiers terms, I thought, okay, we've got a Sathar alien race. Let's make them really alien, and let's not use them much. Let's keep them under the cover so that when the characters finally encounter it, it's like, oh crap, it's the Sathar. I guess equivalent would be early episodes of Next Generation with the Borg. They didn't use that card very often in the plot. And then when they did, it was like, okay, it's time to get serious. Here comes the Borg. That kind of thing. I wanted to make sure the Sathar were special and sinister and scary. So I was really holding them close in my deck of cards to my chest. Like, okay, I'll get to the Sathar. I have to for Volturnas. But we're not going anywhere near that stuff for the longest time. And we didn't. Around the time of my campaign, on TV, there was a show called Space Above and Beyond. And they did an alien bad guy fighter or, technology race very well. Can't remember what the official name was of them in the series, but they were sort of nicknamed as the Chiggs. And they were this, guys in armor costume type of bad guy. But, it was implied that they're kind of very unusual and different. And I think this was not far around the time of Starship Troopers, where you had aliens that were this kind of insect race. And I think maybe that's what that's what Space Above and Beyond might have been going with, is like, here's a much more humanoid, and it is a guy in a suit because we're a TV show, but you know, sort of insect-ish type of race. And they would sometimes get on board their ships, which also looked very alien. And there would be, I mean, if the plot required, oh, they get into the ship and they take off and, you know, they steer it home. It's like, well, I remember them getting onto the control panel and going, what the heck? And that was a new idea in that time. Like, you had various shows before, like Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica, where it's like, oh, I hop into the ship of the bad guy and I fly it home, was fairly easy. I loved how Space Above and Beyond had actually decided, no, this is an alien ship. This is going to take a second or two. And that was very much appreciated. And I kind of use that as inspiration of like, okay, the Sathar are not going to be just some toss away, you know, a bit of technology, you know, as another back of one of the modules, there's a robot that I was like, is that supposed to be a Sathar robot? Because it looks Sathar shaped. So, and yet it's got cogs and pulleys and metal casing. Like, it looks like one of our robots. It's just shaped like a Sathar. Is that what we're going for? No. I thought to myself, no. I'm going to keep the Sathar special. They're going to be used in a very unusual way, and I'm going to get to them eventually. They're kind of the pinnacle of the bad guys. Just took a long time to get there. Too long, in fact. I never did get there in my campaign. One of the modules, though, that I really liked, didn't get to it in my campaign, but I really love the cover art, is Face of the Enemy. There's some Sathar on there, and you really get an inclination of like, oh man, they look totally different from the original rulebook. And these look kind of like an alien species. And these weird soup cans with handles, weapons that they're carrying. Oh man, we're talking an alien species here. That was, Face of the Enemy was sort of that was my touchstone. I was like, yes, that is what I want the Sathar to be. Something alien. If you were to get on board a Sathar ship, it would be an alien experience. Now, unfortunately, that didn't really happen. I never got my characters that far down the road to actually make that happen. We were too busy establishing my worlds and my characters and you know, the different governments and the mega corporations, all that stuff. I was laying the groundwork of like, okay, here is home. Out there are the Sathar. I did mention before, to get to the alien technology thing, there was something that they had in the original rulebook that I thought was really good. The Sathar were into, for whatever reason, kind of manipulating genetics and creating these creatures that you encounter in Volturnus, and there's another one in the book, or the little adventure that comes with the Nighthawks rulebook. They created the Quick Death, which is, and that's literally what it's called. I mean, it obviously implies this thing will be a quick death. Yes, and that's what it's called. Kind of a giant jaguar with tentacles coming out of the sides and weird looking eyeballs and stuff like that. A very weird looking creature, and that was kind of a cool premise. I like the fact, okay, so the Sathar will manipulate genetics and create monsters. They'll give birth to these monstrosities. That's really neat. Okay, I'm on board. That's cool. Kudos to TSR on that one. The other one, which was probably the most frightening, and we only encountered once or twice, was the Cybo Dragon, which again is literally what it's called. This creature is frightening because it has way more hit points than anything else ever, 500 hit points, which, you know, in a game where if you're lucky, you typically start with like 45 hit points, so this thing's got 10 times yours. And you can maybe build yourself up to 100 maximum. This thing's got 500 hit points, so, and it's got laser rifles for eyes and all other kinds of stuff. It's like, holy crap, the Cybo Dragon was like the ultimate frightening creature, and the Sathar created it. Again, not really used except for in the module, but I had always kind of felt that that was something, that's like a major tank that I could use in some combat situation that's going to require it. Again, never came up. It was never really a thing. Yeah. The Sathar were a very cool idea, a great villain. If you're into Starfrontiers, I would like to hear, like, have you used them a lot, and how did you make them work? Were they basically World War II soldiers with the same technology as us, and you just pick up their stuff and use it against them? Or was it a little more otherworldly? Like, did you do the, I don't know, Independence Day thing of like, here's this slimy, weird technology, these spaceships that you can maybe hack into and you can fly yourself? I don't know. How did you make the Sathar work in your campaign? I had in mind something like the Chiggs from Space Above and Beyond, but I never got that far. And I felt like that was probably the best way to handle an alien species. It's funny, I do sometimes, this is going to be a bit weird. I occasionally think about the Sathar at work. This is strange. This is sort of what inspired this video. There's a couple of people who, whenever they call in, I can't help but think about it. One of them is a very lovely lady. Her name is Sathar. And there's another fella, a very, very pleasant guy. I love dealing with him. His name is Sathar. Anytime I see any of them calling, I'm like, it's just like the Sathar. You know, that's the way my mind thinks. Anyway. So yes, that's a brief version of like how I love the Sathar, and yet I never use them, or hardly ever use them in my campaign ever. And we'll be doing some more Star Frontiers in the near future. I took an unnecessarily long hiatus there, but there's more coming. So, until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.